welcome to all our viewers. My name is Divya and I'm a physiotherapist at Play Street.
Hi all, I'm Manisha, a physiotherapist at Play Street.
Play Street is an organization that provides educational services to help children with special needs become independent and live up to their potential. We offer parent empowerment programs, integrated schooling program, and a variety of clinical services.
In recognition of Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month, our focus is firmly set on the profound significance of dyspraxia. We aim for this series to shed the light on the complexities of dyspraxia, address the specific hurdles people with dyspraxia faces, and raise an awareness about its importance within the neurodiversity movements.
Today, we are on the 15th talk of our series under the segment which focuses on the topic of witnessing dyspraxia every day. And we are honored to have Dr. Lakshmi, Animesh, Alvika, Nimisha, and Bharani, who are the parents of children who have dyspraxia. They are here with us to share their valuable thoughts and experience and information on the same. Let me introduce them one by one. First, we have Dr. Lakshmi here, who is an ophthalmologist. At present, she is a full-time homemaker. She completed her MBBS from Government Medical College, Thiruvananthapuram, and diploma in ophthalmic medicine and surgery from MS Ramaya Medical College at Bangalore. She finished her diploma of National Board from Netradama Super Speciality Eye Hospital at Bangalore. And at present, as I said, she is dedicated in taking care of her neurodiverse son while giving equal importance in the development of her younger neurotypical daughter. And secondly, we have Mr. Animesh, who is a wealth management profession, and with nearly 20 years of experience, he has graduated in economics and has an MBA in marketing from IMT Ghaziabad. He is a parent of a 5-year-old autistic boy with speech delay. He is passionate and a strong advocate for inclusive education. He aspires to open a non-profit school for differently able children someday where they can get an opportunity to learn skills which can help them lead a happy and independent life. And next, we have Malvika. Malvika is a headhunter by profession and a mother to a 9-year-old cheeky boy who is on the spectrum. Her journey with her son has only taught her the true meaning of empathy, inclusion, unconditional love, and a family. They are now believing in the saying of less is always more.
Next, we have Mrs. Nimisha. Nimisha is a mother of two handsome sons and a happy homemaker now. She has completed her master degrees in genetics from MS Ramaya College, Bangalore, and further, she has completed her MPhils in biotechnology. She has a working experience of 5 years as an assistant professor at Vaidehi Institute, Bangalore. Now she is a full-time homemaker, love being around her kids, and she believes in patience and perseverance and consistency while working with them. She strongly believes that stepping down into their world, having fun and exploring the world with a lot of encouragement is the best way to get along with them. She is a very hardworking and persistent when it comes to achieving her goals. And also, she tries innovative ways to get there. Next, we have Mrs. Barani. Barani resides in Atlanta, Georgia, in US, along with her husband and their two wonderful boys. They are 11 and 9 years old. Professionally, she works as a cybersecurity architect. Her elder son Virat is diagnosed with autism and predominantly communicates through letterboard via rapid prompting methods and AAC devices. Advocating for inclusion is her core belief of her. She is actively collaborating with her fellow parents in her community to promote it. She continuously searches for innovative approaches to support her child in navigating the challenges of autism. She was introduced to Play Street in 2022. Since then, she has been in the learning journey with our founder, Miss Minnie Ma'am, and it has been significantly enhancing their lives.
Thank you so much, Manisha, for introducing them. And thank you so much for all the parents for coming up here. Let us go straight into the questions. First, I would like to ask a question to Dr. Lakshmi. Lakshmi, how did you come to know that your child has dyspraxia? And as a parent, what is your basic general understanding of dyspraxia?
Um, my son, he was finding it difficult in sitting in classes, not only classes, even at home. While other kids used to sit and play and take turns and play, he was finding it very difficult to sit at a point and play. And even simple things which like his age kids used to do, like climbing a rope ladder in a park, or like hanging a monkey bar, all those things, he was finding it difficult. So initially I thought it was like maybe he'll get it uh, once he grows up. That was my thought. But then when I discussed it with his teachers, even in school he was not able to sit for very few time, like little circle time, he was not able to manage. He wanted to move around. So that's when I took it as a concern, and I discussed it with my friends and my therapists at Play Street. And then it came up like he had problems of dyslexia. Even though I'm a doctor and I know dyspraxia is like a difficulty in motor coordination, and the kids will find it difficult in planning their motor activities. I was not very much sure if my son had it until my therapist at Play Street told me, and then that's how like I started moving ahead with uh, physiotherapy for him to work on dyspraxia.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi, for sharing whatever knowledge you have. And yes, even though as you as a doctor profession must be not knowing how actually it would clearly look like until we see it somewhere closer to us, right? Thank you so
True, true.
much. It is really good to listen from you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would like to ask Mr. Animesh another question. Hi, sir. I
Right.
would like to know what challenges does your child face on a daily basis due to the dyspraxia, and how do you support him in overcoming the challenges which he faces?
The main challenge with dyspraxia is that there is an intent from the child to speak, but there is a lack of ability for that intent to convert into words, right? So a lot of times when you ask him to repeat a word, you can see that he gets to a point where he is about to open his mouth and there's nothing. It just goes blank after that. So you can make out that, yeah, he's wanting to say something, but nothing is really coming out. So there is obviously a coordination problem. There is a motor planning problem which is there. What it does is it causes a lot of frustration with the child in the sense that he wants to express, but people are not able to understand him. His close people, like his parents, they are not able to understand him. And it often what happens is that they tend to go into a shell. They become very, very solitary people and they will play on their own. They will uh, until unless there is a very, very strong motivation for them to communicate, they will not really do that. So that was the main challenge with dyspraxia. So what we as parents have been practicing is, other than the OPT techniques which has been taught to us by the therapist at place, uh, what we also do is we do a little bit of parallel talk, which is try to finish the conversation for him. If he is not able to say, then we try to complete the conversation. Okay, Ahan wants to play in the swing right now. So Ahan is swinging. So those kind of conversations, that's something which helps. So over a period of time, I've realized that at least OPT, prompt, few of these techniques is getting him to a stage where he's able to now make sounds, maybe phonetic sounds. Probably one step away from a single word, then probably we have to get to two words and then finally sentences. So the hope is there. Let's hope that it works out.
Thank you, Mr. Animesh. I think we all should hope. The hope is the only thing which we all can give our children as well. One day they all will do best. Next, I would like to ask Miss Malavika. Malavika, what kind of difficulties do you see in your child in his own body awareness, and how does that impact you interacting with him?
So with my son, he kind of faces interoception challenges, spatial awareness challenges, so that results in difficulty with self-regulation for him. So I mean, all of us have been in this journey, so we do know that interoception is basically understanding of the bodily feelings, and interpret what's exactly going on inside the body, and spatial awareness is basically able to gauge the distance, how to apply appropriate pressure, stuff like that. So with Purav, because of his limited body awareness and also being nonverbal, it gets difficult for us, to get to the real source of discomfort, as it can't be pinpointed. And that in turn, results in unexplained behavior. So, and when it comes to, limited spatial awareness, he can probably pat or hug too hard, doesn't keep an acceptable distance when he's engaging with his peers or any other being. Like, for example, if it's a dog, he loves dogs, he wants to play with them, but he pats really hard. So the dog kind of gets taken aback. So we need to teach him all of that. So for my son, mostly, this body awareness challenges takes him in a in an emotion state. So it all comes out in the form of extra stimming, which is hand flapping, and then anxiety, which is more of teeth grinding. And so to overcome this, our interaction with him is based on strict schedules. So it's just to avoid triggers, especially during the meal time, sleep time, and playtime. So we have been quite successful in that, but now we are trying efforts of incorporating a bit of surprise elements in his schedules. And we're doing this very gradually so that he doesn't develop a rigid behavior, because he's going to grow. He's already 9, he's going to become a teen. So we just need to play around things and see that we develop his body awareness with all the therapies that we're doing, the PT, the OT, and yeah, so that's how we kind of face challenges because of his body awareness issues.
Thank you, Malavika, for sharing your experiences. And how are you interacting? Is like other parents also can learn from this answer. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
hopefully. Yeah.
And next, I would like to ask Miss Nimisha. Nimisha, how is your child's play and ideation affected? And how does you bring playtime for your child?
Okay. So, play is basically, as we all know, it's a child's way of exploring the world and learning new things. Okay. So, it is generally associated with a lot of motor planning to know what has to be done and how much or how it has to be done. So, in case of Neerav, what I see is when I'm giving him unstructured toys like a two-piece puzzle or a Lego, he's totally he doesn't know what the motor plan has to be done to fix the puzzle or fix the Lego. So in such cases the play interaction is very poor, but there are some cause effect toys like musical toys which he really loves. So those toys he can sit for a very long time just because the music gives him pleasure. Okay. So when given an unstructured toy like a puzzle, he always requires an adult intervention to know how to fix it, where to fix it, and he needs that support for his motor planning to fix the puzzle or the Lego. So, because of this, what happens? He is not exploring more into all these toys where his motor plans are not working as he or as it is required for the game. Okay. So, playtime, actually, I have introduced playtime in every possible way during all his activities at home. For example, even water play, he loves water play. So taking bath itself is a playtime where I encourage him to understand his body or give that body awareness, give motor planning where he has to take water from the bucket and pour it on him. He should know where the water has to go, either it is on his head or on his shoulders. Even while giving him foam or soap to play, I generally tell him where to put. Is it his arms or legs or face? So he recognizes certain body parts in that way. So his body awareness is there. And he knows how much he has to scrub because of this. Later, wiping off, all that is like it has come to a level where he doesn't need any assistance for all this. Other than this, there is swinging where we tell him to differentiate fast and slow movements. Then there is cycling he does, so he knows to navigate through his ways. Then there are other games like playing tunnel activities where we build a tunnel and ask him to crawl down. So basically, I try to teach him how to crawl through it. And there are dancing or action songs where he has to lift or clap hands or tap his feet according to the songs that comes in. So that is how whatever it is, whichever thing he has more fun with, like even if it is music or water play or soap play. So I introduce a lot of playtime there to make him aware about his body, his space, and also plan his motor act accordingly.
Thank you, Nimisha, for sharing. That is really appreciative of you. Like you have even shared what all you do it. So I think maybe if any of the parents who are watching this discussion are clueless of how to play to rebuild that relationship, I think you can take whatever Nimisha has been telling right now. Thank you so much, Nimisha. And Bharani, I would like to ask you another question. How do you help your child in communication? Like, do you use ASC and what are the benefits that you have seen by using ASC devices?
Sure. So my son is non-speaking. He makes a lots of words, like sounds and words, but it is not concrete that we can tell he has, he communicates using his speech. So we were introduced to AAC when he was 4 years old. It was a device, a tablet on that. But my son has issues with visual tolerance, like he can see and all, but to be able to use an iPad or a device to communicate was a little hard for him back when he was 4 years old. At that time, I think when he was 6, we found out about rapid prompting method. So we started using that for his learning. And then we found out, okay, this child has something which is not we are saying. So he started using the letterboard a lot. We call it low-tech AAC because it's still some form of alternate communication. And then once we started building his communication through the letterboard, about 8, when he turned 8 years old, we introduced typing to him along with using the AAC device. With that AAC device, we started working on core words and then a combination of typing because there were things that he wanted to openly communicate which were not in the core word system. So we do a combination of AAC and typing as a whole. He really enjoys, opening his up, putting his thoughts out, and it has already also helped him in the school system because there was a certain way the school teaches him. They did not understand that this child can able to, type and respond to their questions. So once we reached out to the school system, helped them understand this is how this child works and learns. It was easier for the child and the school system to be able to navigate through that mode of communication. We still have a long way to go, but it's helping our lives a lot better, and we are getting better and better at it every day.
I'm really glad to know the journey that you have taken your son along all this while. And I'm really impressed to how he has learned this. And as you said, the school might not understand or might not believe how capable the child is, right? Unless they get to know to communicate. Every child has their own way of communication unless they get to know what they are using. Thank you for that answer. Thank you so much. And Lakshmi, I would like to ask you a question. what are the strategies that you have found to be effective in helping your child navigate in the social situation, sorry, and to develop friendship? How do you foster a sense of belonging and the inclusivity of your child within your family, or that might be your community and other circles?
So, if like to the initial part, you were asking about the strategies that we have been using to improve his social skills and communications. First thing I would like to say is that we have accepted him as he is, and we never shy from taking him anywhere, be it anywhere, shopping or family functions, or even though we know that he may be overwhelmed, or we always back him. Like, we don't put him down anywhere. So it's always that he is exposed to social situations. And another thing which I found is very effective is his school. So his school is also supporting him very much, be it in a buddy or in other, participate in various events, which is not like forcing him to do anything. In whatever way he is good at, they try to encourage him in doing that. And apart from these things, I feel that working on his primitive reflexes have helped him very much. Like, it's been like 8 9 months since we have been doing his primitive reflex therapy, so that has um, like improve his responses, social outcomes, and even I feel that his physiotherapy has helped him being physically more like fit, or has given him that confidence, is what I feel, in going out, or being with friends, or opening up in family. So, and one more strategy that has helped was the co-regulation part, which Minika has been helping us with. So even I feel that co-regulation has also helped him in improving his social skills. Uh, yes, so that those are the strategies which I would like to emphasize upon.
Thank you, Miss Lakshmi. I think all the other parents also need to focus on all these aspects and focus along like a parent, not only the therapy sessions after going home also, as you told, how to build up his social communication in the school, in your family and all. I think they should work like that. Thank you so
Yes,
much, Miss Lakshmi. And next, I would like to ask Nimisha. Nimisha, can you share any strategies or techniques that have helped your child to improve his motor skills and coordination?
Yes, Manisha. So, Neerav has both gross motor, fine motor skill difficulties, and also to top it off, he has sensory issues too. So, from not being able to walk at the age of 2, not even holding a spoon to eat, or not even able to chew his food, he's come a long way till now, where now he is able to do even cycling, he's able to hold a spoon and eat without much assistance. So, for all this progress or all this coordination, motor skill improvement, the main three things that I have seen which helped him was, the first one is physiotherapy, the second is occupational therapy, and the third is oral placement therapy. So these three therapies have been very, very helpful in bringing him to where he is now. So physiotherapy, we actually, the physiotherapist, that is Divya, she works with Neerav to get his tone, muscle tone corrected, his postures corrected. So a lot of activities that helps in this is like the wheelbarrow walking, the climbing the ladder and coming down, hanging on a monkey bar. So all this has been very much helpful in no. As of now, he started crawling, which I have never seen till now. So it has been very helpful. In case of OT, occupational therapy, that is a lot of activities for his improving his sitting tolerance has been done. A lot of fine motor activities have been focused, like pegboard activities. Then there are hand-eye coordination activities, the midline crossing activities, which is helping him understand his motor plan for various activities. There are also sensory diet that Miraculin has told, using sensory bins, home play, music, dance, tracking the light. There are massages, joint compressions, wrapping him in a thick blanket, which all helps him calm down before I get into an activity. And his focus is much better when all this is done. With oral placement therapy, all I know talk tools are there, all that is there, but to know how to use it is the main thing. So that has also helped in getting this blowing, sucking, all that has really improved with Neerav. So all these three therapies is what I see, which has helped him to come a long way until now to where he is at right now.
Thank you so much, Nimisha. Actually, along we working as a therapist, thank you so much for appreciating us as well. And the way you work with Neerav is also very appreciable. Like what we say, you follow all those things in the home as well. That shows a visible difference in Neerav.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you, Mr.
so much from all our therapists as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to ask Miss Barani. Bharani, what difficulties do you face in your child's ADLs, and how much help do you provide for him in day-to-day activities, and what strategies would you help help your child to be independent?
Yeah, so in the ADS, it's a lot of challenge for him, like let's say brushing the teeth. There are a couple of steps like squeezing the toothpaste, all of that is pretty difficult because of the fine motor difficulties my son has. And also, like let's say he's showering and he needs to moisturize. He understands that the step is there, but when you verbally tell him, he goes to a particular location to find his stuff or soap or whatever, but then he's lost. He knows mommy asked something, but then when he goes there, he's kind of confused. So that's the whole dyspraxia uh, package, right? So the way that I and my family started working and how we realized is the task needs to be broken down into multiple steps. Let's say brushing teeth, we break it into multiple steps. And then a visual schedule or a visual reminder for him. Okay, now we take the brush, we squeeze the toothpaste. Each of it is a success mark for him. And whatever he is able to do independently, we check off. So the child sees, okay, out of 15 steps, I've mastered 10 and I only have 5 to go. That's a motivation for him. Okay, I have 5 to go, and then we move on to the next task. Even showering or eating, he has been pretty good since he was young. So we didn't have a lot of issues with eating. But the other stuff, like shower or, getting ready for school, all of that we use a visual schedule, we break down into multiple steps, and then we show the child we only need to master the next two, and a lot of encouragement and positive reinforcement and verbal reminders. Sometimes now we are backing out, we don't even do verbal reminders. We just look at him and then he understands, okay, there's a step that I missed. Because of that visual schedule, he is able to connect to it instead of someone instructing him, this is what you need to do next, all that. So those are some tips that we use at home on a daily basis.
That's a wonderful strategy, Bharani. That's really impressive, like breaking down the task into minute structures would actually, as you said, motivate the children to do it more. Like it wouldn't be a big task at a time for them. Breaking them down would give them that intrinsic motivation, just one more step to get that reward. So thank you for this great strategy for sharing it with us. And I would like to ask Malvika our next question. Hi, Malvika. So I would like to know what approach have you used to explain your child about the dyspraxia that he is having of, or what are the strengths and the challenges that your child might face and is facing them to understand those things?
Yeah, so for my son, I really don't think he would understand the term dyspraxia. But yes, given he has coordination, body awareness issues, so very similar to what Barney does with her child, we break down daily tasks into simple steps, model motor plan, and we mostly do things, in a very similar pattern at all times. So this way, it's kind of easier for him to learn the coordination part of it and feel less frustrated. So, for example, whether it's bath or getting ready for school, everything is broken into single steps, and he's able to enjoy that. And also, there's a quicker learning aspect in that. And like it's very similar to what Barney mentioned. So even if he fails, there is very gentle reminders given either in a verbal way or maybe through our facial expressions if he's kind of crossed the verbal kind of reminders. And my son loves lot of verbal encouragement, so that kind of helps him better. So to improve his dyspraxia situation, we also do OT, a lot of primitive reflex integration, coordination activities. So we do a lot of obstacle courses, bicycle activities, ball activities, swimming, scooty, and a lot of weight bearing exercises. And we also engage him in various home course, so which involves him improving his motor planning and coordination activities. Yeah, so that's what we do.
Thank you for sharing what you have used as an approach. And I appreciate you particularly in this, Malvika, because it's not easy for a parent to think in a way not to overpressure my child. I can break it down, make it simpler for him. I appreciate you and Bharani, both of you, because yes, this is a great strategy, and I would appreciate every parent to use this in their relation with their children. Like if you want a goal with your children, break it down, and that would actually make a big difference. Thank you for
Yes.
this. And I would like to ask Mr. Animesh the next question. So, what is your opinion on the kind of services parents mostly prioritize? Like, why do you think that parents focus on working of speech and language more compared to any other areas like developing their sense of self, maybe understanding their sensory and motor challenges?
Yeah, and the main reason I feel that this happens is that, see, firstly, when you realize that your child is different, your whole world falls apart at that stage. Every parent who's there in this panel would have gone through that. And I remember there are 5 stages of grief, as they say. So you start with denial, which is that this cannot be happening. Second would be anger, that why did I not notice it earlier? Then you get into something known as bargaining, that okay, if I would have done this, I could have done this better. Maybe my child would have turned out in a different manner. Then the fourth stage is depression, which I'm sure that every parent would have gone through. The last is acceptance. So you have these 5 stages which every parent goes through, right? And it's best if you can reach the acceptance stage very very soon, but it doesn't happen. It's easier said than done. As in you will go through that stage. As in me and my wife have had so many discussions that why we missed this, why this happened. At that stage, what happens is that you start panicking. You start panicking that okay, uh, and you tend to take a lot of opinions from a lot of people at that stage and not really go to a professional. So what happens is that you start thinking that okay, maybe if I somehow manage to make my child talk, then I can understand his needs better and then I can work on it accordingly. So that becomes your priority, that okay, speech and language, it starts with that. slowly you realize that there are other deficits also in different areas. Like a lot of parents here have mentioned that maybe their awareness, their spatial awareness, the way they walk, the way they behave, hand flapping, teeth grinding, all sorts of things are there. And you need to probably have a holistic plan in place. You have to work on every aspect. That realization comes later. And parents who want to do speech initially, I feel they're justified because at that stage they are just unaware. At the same time, they're panicking because it's something which is very, very new, which has happened. But I think so things will fall in place after a point of time. They have to go through that learning curve. There is no simple way to just start a holistic program. You have to go through that learning curve. Every parent has gone through it, and I'm sure that in the future also parents will have to go through it.
Thank you, Mr. Animesh, for sharing your journey and the way you have told, like step by step, of what the parents would have felt in the first, second, third, and all. I think maximum of the parents would have gone through this journey. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I would like to ask Miss Bharani. Bharani, what accommodation or modification have you found most effective in supporting your child's learning and participation in various activities?
So let us talk about learning. Like I mentioned earlier, we started working on the letterboard. At that time, what I found out is like the way we all grew up, first thing we do is we write. We take a slate, we take a chalk, and we start writing. But this dyspraxia comes with fine motor difficulties. So writing is hard. Writing is very hard. The grip, making the shape of a letter is very hard. So through the AAC and the communication that we have been building, I found typing is easier for my child. So what I prioritized is find his strength. What is the strength does my child have? His strength is typing. He is able to type better than write in school or an answer when I'm working on an academic lesson. I encourage him to type. At the same time, work on what his weakness is. Fine motor is difficult. So what can I do uh, to improve that and make it like an activity that I'm not pushing my child. At the same time, I'm working on the goal to improve that strength of fine motor activities. And it need not just be writing. Okay, take a slate and, the way we used to learn, you write a thousand times on that, right? Instead of that, what can we do? We build the fine motor activities. It will come and the skill will develop when it's time, but what are we doing? Working on Play-Doh and things like that, building that fine motor strength, all of that. And when it comes to various activities, other activities like let's say swimming, or any other fun or anything else, any other activity, I'll talk a little bit about swimming. My child loves to be in the water, but at the same time, um, going into the swimming pool, that center and the clinic is very, he gets a lot of anxious. What we have noticed and what we have changed in the past is, let's say your swimming class is at like 9 o'clock. Be there like 30 minutes earlier because he needs that time to adjust and then be comfortable. Earlier, it used to be like we used to reach on time, and then he misses the class, and then there is anxiety and all of that. But reaching to your therapy or to your activity sometime early, giving the child time to adjust, relax, and then the other thing that I found very helpful after starting to work with Mini is giving them an expectation and helping them understand we are going to a church. This is how this is how long it's going to take. It's going to take an hour. This is what we will be doing. So explaining to them upfront that this is coming gives them that okay, this is how the next 1 hour is going to, and I think that will help the child a lot to set that expectation and also to be able to adjust to the environment that they will be um, going to. So those are some things that we use from a learning and activity participation side of things.
Thank you, Bharani. Actually, this is a great effort from your sides. Like a parent, you are putting your effort more to make him do his tasks and all. I think this will be useful for all other parents who are watching this video also. Like, we have to understand the children first, let them understand what's going to happen and all, and then put him in that situation will calm them down. That's a great strategy. Thank you so much for sharing that. Next, I would like to ask Miss Malavika. Malavika, what impact have you seen in developing a guiding relationship with your child?
So, incorporating guiding relationships and a lot of co-regulation strategies actually helped in encouraging him to participate and stop visualizing or perceiving everything as a task to be completed. Because when the diagnosis came in, I was in this thing like, uh, do this activity, this needs to be completed, that needs to be completed. So he went in a completely different zone, and he stopped doing things that he really liked. There was a complete shift in his behavior. So we were kind of stuck. We were trying to achieve something, but we've actually gone backwards. So guiding relationship and doing these co-regulation strategies really helped us, in enjoying the simple, subtle activities and daily experiences of life, and has actually started helping us as a family to engage in a more collaborative manner rather than leading an instruction based life. So basically, in simplistic terms, it for my son Purav as well, and for us as a family, it's kind of helped in strengthening our emotional quotient, and just enjoying life and stop looking at everything as work to be completed. Yeah, so that should be all for me.
That's a good answer, Malvika. Actually, it makes sense when you say that you having a good relation or your family having a good relation for your child will be the first support that your child will get. So the more
Yeah.
stronger the good relation you have with your child, the child can be open up to you. And if any goal is extremely tough, he has to be completely fine to share it with you or to let you know that it is tough. You are the only person that they can communicate with, right? So
Exactly.
uh, thank you so much. I think many of the parents who are watching, they can really incorporate this. As she is saying, having a guiding or a regulation between your child and you will take your journey to a good way. It is going to help you in a good way. So thank you for that. And Lakshmi, I would like to ask you a question now. How do you promote a positive mindset and resilience in your child as they navigate the ups and downs with dyspraxia in their life?
When there are ups, like when he's doing well, we are always happy, and we give a lot of positive, uh, like you tell him, wow, we are very proud of you, and that makes him like happy. That keeps him motivated to do things. So he comes to a point that he understands, okay, I can also do this, and so this can be done by me, and all. He has that thing in his mind, and so even next time, even without us prompting or in his own intrinsic motivation, he does that. But when there are downs, uh, having a child with dyspraxia, definitely there are, you know, points in life where you feel very like disheartened or. So one thing which has helped me is I don't compare him with anyone. So that is very important. I feel I don't even compare him with my younger child. So that is one thing which has helped me. And second thing, initially I used to feel very down when something he was not able to do, though he was trying to do it and he was not able to coordinate everything and then do the finally do that thing. So initially I used to feel very upset, but later I found that there is no point in getting upset, but we have to work on it. So I used to note those things. I used to write it in a notebook, like what happened. I used to maintain a daily diary, and then I used to ask ma'ams, like I used to ask Mirackling ma'am, or I used to ask Divya ma'am, Abhishek sir, or Sarah ma'am. So I used to say, this happened, ma'am. I was not able to handle it, and he was not able to handle it. So what can it be done? So then they used to tell the approaches which can be applied, not only on those situations, but on a broader basis. So just like Bharani had said, like preparing them before going to an overwhelming situation. So that is one point which has helped. Then second thing was, telling him that also Bharani had mentioned that, see, we are going to a wedding, we are going to a birthday party. So this is how this happens here. There will be so many people coming. There'll be uncles, aunties. There'll be people who will be coming and talking to you. There'll be loud music which will be playing. So all those things. So following what the his teachers, like the therapists, have been saying has been a lot of great help. So that is a part which has, helped me to keep the positive mindset, even though there are downs. Still there are downs, but still that has helped me like hang along and move forward.
Yeah, as you said, you're still learning. I'm pretty sure everyone are still figuring out good ways to deal with our children or their mindset. As you said, dealing with the ups which they achieve will be easier, right? We can appreciate and give a positive reinforcement. But when the downs come, that's when I think it not only just impacts them, it impacts you as well, thinking that what is now he's going to, how is he going to react? So I think whatever strategies which you are so far using, right? I personally would like to appreciate you for that. Like, unless you understand what actually has went wrong, you cannot see the solution, right? So I appreciate you for that, and I'm really happy that you shared this with us. So maybe this shows how important our child's mindset can also play in their skill set, right? So thank you for showing some light on this. Lakshmi, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Nimisha, I would like to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So I would like to know, Nimisha, in what ways has dyspraxia impacted your family dynamics? How you prioritize your self-care in this? Because you, as a yourself, you need some support, right? So how do you prioritize that?
Okay. So I live in a joint family with my in-laws. So what happened earlier when Nirav was diagnosed with his condition, there was a lot of pressure on getting him do things, age appropriate things from everyone. So that pressure took a real big toll on us because he was dependent on us for everything. Even for a walk or even to eat or whatever it is, he was totally dependent. So understanding that no, he is not able to perform as a neurotypical child took a long time. Not for me, but the other family members. So once that was explained to them very well, that this is what it is, this is how it is, this is how it is going to be, they were quite supportive with taking care of Neerav. So any issues that comes up, anything that comes up with him when he's with his grandparents, they ask me now. They generally ask me, what is happening? Why is he doing this? What can we do that he doesn't repeat this behavior again? So we have a general family discussion once in a week or once in a month where we discuss as to where Nirav is standing or what has to be achieved with him, what can be done to achieve. And they are very inquisitive about knowing how they can be helpful to achieve that goal. In the same way, there are tasks that I write down on a daily basis for Neerav as to what has to be done today, what exercises to be done today, or what activities that has to be done today. And I write down how he is improved or how much he is progressed or he didn't do anything. And me and my husband sit together every day and talk okay, this is what happened today. This didn't work today. Why it didn't work today? How can we work? Or is he not liking it? How do we make it better for him if he has to achieve that goal? So that way, and other than that, yeah, the other chores, let it be household chores or the activities that we do with Neerav, we divide it amongst ourselves, me and my husband, what has to be done by whom. And since that is there, we generally find time for going out for an exercise, especially when he is at Play Street. That is when I go out for my exercise. So when we are traveling to Play Street, me and Neerav, we enjoy music that he likes, so it calms him down. And also, I make time to read something, at least a chapter of a book, before going to sleep. So all this helps me calm down and be fresh for the next day that comes up.
Thank you, Nimisha, for sharing your journey with Mirav and how did you come up all this way and how to prioritize yourself. As a parent, we have to be in a supportive stage so that the child can be dependent on us. So I think every parent should take this word from Nimisha and incorporate this, like calming down, reading books or whatever is required for you to be calmed down and for you to be little more physically active, and also that our childs need to be supported. Thank you so much, Nimisha. Nimisha, have you encountered any barriers or challenges in accessing appropriate resources or services for your child, and how have you addressed them?
Yeah, plenty of them. Lot of barriers that came up right from where we start assessment for Neerav to the therapies. It's been a very long journey. So while talking about assessments, so assessments was one place where I was never satisfied with, because wherever we go, they assess, like it's like just a 45-minute session, and I really didn't understand how they can assess a child in a 45-minute session. If he's in a bad mood day or he's in a very good mood day, you cannot assess a child like that. At least minimum about around 2 or 3 sessions is required for a child to be assessed as to what he is, what his potential is. So assessment was something that I was never happy about. Secondly, coming to therapies. So therapies, no, you always want the best to be given to your child, right? And finding out which is the best person, where to go to. And I have moved around Bangalore for each and every therapy, thinking, okay, this is the best place, this is the best place. So every day was like a journey for us, to move around, and it was taking a toll, because I really wanted a place where everything is there, every therapy is provided under one roof. So, and the therapies also, there are places where I have been to, where the teachers, the initial progress of Neerav would be really marvelous. But after that, he reaches a threshold where then it becomes totally stagnant. There is no progress. And when you ask the therapists about what is happening, there are places where they have denied access to the, as a parent, to what they are doing or how it has to be done or what we should do at home. So that know-how for a parent was denied to me in a lot of places, and because of which I had to quit. Then after the therapies, it comes to getting Neerav things done, getting him to do things, right? That was also a barrier for me. Like a lot of tasks which we see on a daily basis, to get him to do those tasks were a lot of things were impossible for me. I didn't know how to do it or how to get him to do it. What is the right way to get him to do it and all that. So all this put together, finally I found a place called Play Street, where I know the therapists, their knowledge, how much it has been useful to me, how much they are working with him, how much they are empowering the parents to work with their child in the right direction. co-regulation has been one wonderful program that had been given to by Minimum, which has helped me understand how to work or get things done by Neerav by being with him. And physiotherapy, yeah. So we all generally run into occupational therapy and speech therapy, and no one has even thought about physiotherapy much during the therapy sessions. So physiotherapy being an eye opener for me after joining Play Street, I understand that a lot of things go through, I mean, helps Neerav to calm down, not only not only just OT or speech therapy. Physiotherapy has helped him to learn a lot more about his body awareness or his motor skill development. It has been really helpful in that way.
Thank you so much, Nimisha, for telling and sharing your barriers which you faced. I feel like many of the parents must have faced similar barriers where the places or the therapy centers which they trust and send their children to might not provide the best, and that would actually give you a heartbreak. I can understand how Nimisha is sharing that. So I appreciate that you finally have got a place where you are completely satisfied with the resources.
Yes, very much
And
so.
yeah, thank you. So my next question is for Lakshmi. Lakshmi, I would like to know how you balance the need of advocating for your child's needs and also in the same way allowing them to have the space to be independent and do the self-advocacy skill by themselves.
Ma'am, for that, I found co-regulation very useful, which was taught to me by Mini ma'am. So in that, ma'am has given a few steps like using declarative languages, like allowing the child to opinionate. So all those things have helped us to balance these two things, like giving him his level of freedom to talk, or where I should be like backing him. So that is one thing. The second thing was the the dimensional approach, which has been given. We have been getting the OT, the speech, the primitive reflex co-regulation, then the group sessions which are going on with Rishabh. So all these have been playing a very important role. So the holistic approach is very important in balancing both these is what I feel, because I get my own ideas and my own inputs, and Rishabh gets his own ideas and his own inputs, and then we both, not we both, like the family as a whole gets a balance on how to go about it and how to go managing. So that's the idea I have.
That's a good idea actually. Thanks for sharing that. You actually might not be completely sure, but I'm pretty sure that this would help many parents. See, like there has to be a balance where they have to take their own stand and where you have to take a stand for them as a mother. So I think that's a thin line where the parents and the child has to mind, right? So
Balance.
building that with the children might be difficult, right? Thank you for sharing that actually. And one more question for you, which can be a group input as well. So, what advices can you give other parents who are navigating their journey, their early journeys for raising their child with dyslexia? I'd like to know your points, Lakshmi.
Yes. The first thing I would like to suggest to all parents who are having neurodiverse kids is not to underestimate dyspraxia, ma'am. So dyspraxia, it has got a lot to do with everything, like talking, chewing. So all this involves the motor coordination. It's not just the speaking. Even for speaking, they need to coordinate all these muscles of their mouth and their facial expression. So everything needs motor coordination. So even as a doctor, I feel that even the people whom we go for diagnosis, they underestimate the need for dyspraxia management. So that is very important, and a holistic approach, ma'am, like a multidimensional approach. other than only doing the speech part and the OT part, we need to also do many things for the kid so that they can, manage themselves and move ahead. So that would be my very important suggestion for all the parents.
Thank you. And Bharani, would you like to add some more points for this?
Yeah, so what I echo with what Lakshmi is saying, and to add a few, what I would say is parent education is very important because we need to understand why the child is doing a certain thing. Although we are, like as a parent, if you are not seeing the same difficulty, it's hard for you to understand. Treat it as, we call it as behavior, but it's actually not behavior. The child is telling you with the body awareness and with his body movements that there is something wrong. I cannot do a certain activity. So that's why the need for parent education and getting professional help and working with the therapist is very important. And to add another point, I would also suggest that when when a child gets diagnosis, the parent initially depends purely on the therapist. Therapists are great, they give us a lot of information, but we also, as a parent, as a family, we need to work together as a whole to see what can be done at home because that's equally important. A therapist can help you an hour a day or 2 hours a day, but you are with the child 24 by 7. So, what you can do and find pockets of time within your schedule. Okay, this 30 minutes I can focus on some activity, and that 30 minutes is a balance, relaxing time. And I also liked what the other parents suggested today. It was a learning curve for me as well to understand. Oh, okay, Nimisha does this kind of stuff, and Malavika is working like this. So I would parent education on the list of advice.
Thank you, Bharani. And Malavika, would you like to add your advices for the same?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo the similar thoughts like what Bharani and actually Lakshmi said. But, as an advice to parents who have new diagnosis, I would just say it's an ocean out there. So, but just take one step at a time. So, getting overwhelmed, yes, it is going to happen. But yeah, make sure you don't get too overwhelmed with the trillions of suggestions that you get. Do what works best for you and for the child. And one thing I follow very, strictly as of now after doing a lot of mistakes. I wouldn't say mistakes because it was a learning for me as well. Is just remember less is more and there is no rush. So just focus on, coordination activities, awareness activities, present them in a very fun way to your child. Don't make it like a task because this was something I did and it would be nice for me to advise new parents. Yeah, I know at that point, at that stage, you wouldn't want to make it as a fun way, but yeah, maybe just present it in a fun way because at the end of the day, it's a kid. So just work on him and also don't forget yourself. So yeah.
That's a really good advice. You guys actually improved, but then I appreciate every one of you. Thank you, Malvika. Thank you, Bharani and Lakshmi, for putting up all your advices. Like each one of you have learned it through your mistakes as well, but then you were very brave to share that to other parents. So I appreciate all of you for them. And one more question for Bharani now. Bharani, how do you advocate for your child's needs within their school environment? Like, what are the accommodations they are supporting in the school that is actually helpful for you to school?
So for us, since the COVID year, I think we took about 2 or 3 years, we did virtual learning. So going back to the school system, they pulled our goals like as if he was in a kindergarten level, and but he's actually in fifth grade. So the way that I had to help the school understand his potential and his need was I went in, worked with my child in the school system for at least 3 or 4 sittings, and help them understand. If we are doing a science lesson, this is how he would communicate. This is how he can answer a specific question, and things like that. I had to work with with my child in a school, in a conference room, in front of a bunch of teachers. But that's how I helped them understand, and then that was an eye opener for my son's teachers, who are like, oh, he is able to communicate through typing. He is able to communicate in through the AAC model or something like that. So just I would suggest parents reach out to the school system, be open about your child having a different learning style. Each child has a different learning style. So definitely go back and forth with your school system, talk to the teachers and all of that. And the other support that I suggested that the school do is, let's say if they're working on a fine motor, instead of going right into that fine motor activity like writing or doing something, do something else like a sensory activity, which is kind of giving them a warm up to do the fine motor activity better. So that's how I learned that my child can work better. Like, for example, if we are doing any writing or something, the prerequisite for me is to work on some Play-Doh or something like that. It's almost like a warm up before we exercise. So that helps him a lot with the fine motor. So I tried to add it into his plan in the school. So they do that sensory activity before a fine motor. They do a lot of movement breaks. If and then they do short sessions, 15 minutes, and then he gets a break, and then he comes back and then works on a different activity. And the other part is no repetition. Too much of repetition for my child is like he's not interested anymore. So that also I had to talk to the school system, and they started innovating the way they work with my child.
Thank you so much for sharing all these things with us, Bharani. And I would like to appreciate you for taking the step to communicate the same thing to the school and the educators or therapist whom your son is going to. And I would like to appreciate the therapist as well who takes the time and gives us short breaks in between and all. So I would like to appreciate all of you all. Thank you so much for sharing this. I think all other parents also should go for this. This is like a take home message, one of the take home message from this session. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to ask Miss Malavika. Malavika, how do you celebrate or recognize the unique strength and abilities that your child brings to you, your family, and community?
Yeah, so I have been very vocal about his diagnosis. So that has actually helped in connecting my son with the community and vice versa. And, saying that as a family, we celebrate success, achievements, milestones in a very typical way. That is, encouraging, and we don't do anything out of the norm. So, for example, all his artwork is stuck on his room wall, and he loves gazing at it, and it kind of gives him a sense of accomplishment, like I've done this. They may be just sensory artwork or splish splash paint, but it's all stuck on a wall. And he just comes, he sits in his room, he looks at it, he smiles, and I know that this kind of gives him encouragement. And he loves swimming, so after a successful swim lab, we also do a lot of water splashing at the end. So because I don't want it to look again like a task, and then you completed the swim lab, so he looks at this water splashing at the end more of an encouragement. And my son loves verbal praises. Like, he can go bonkers if anyone just praises him, like, Purav, you're so handsome, Purav, you're so lovely. He just loves that. So because I have been so vocal about his diagnosis, the place where I stay, my friends who we meet on a daily basis, they know how to encourage him, how to when he goes to their house, how to make him comfortable. A little bit of praise and Pura would kind of be settled over there, so that kind of works. And yeah, we raise our son just like, how every child is to be raised. So with loads of love, affection, teach him the right and the wrong, the do's and the don't. And I can say that, yes, he is a well-mannered boy most of the times, but, when there is an unexpected sensory trigger, then yes, of course, and that's not his fault. So yeah, that should be my takeaway.
Thank you so much, Malavika, for sharing your so great effort that you are making for your son to feel very like owned in that place.
Yeah.
Not only you, your community and all as well. Thank you so much for putting so much of effort for your child growing up. And I think this is also one of the other take home message for all the parents who are watching, who are here and all. We need to celebrate the chotu things as well. Only then the child will feel like, yeah, I have done that. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to ask Nimisha. Nimisha, what resources or the support networks have you found most helpful in your journey as a parent for your child?
So, first and foremost, my family has been a big support with when coming to work with me. Like all of them, including my parents or my in-laws, they all have been very supportive to understand what has to be done, what how to get him where he is now, and no, they have been there through all my thick and thin and my roller coaster ride with me. So that is one thing. Other than them, there are a lot of books that I actually read, which gives me different strategies on how to work or how to be with Nirav. There are a lot of YouTube videos or channels that I go through to work with him. Um, then there are other parent groups where I ask for suggestions for a lot of things when it comes to his therapies or his activities or everything. But even though I have all these resources there, at the end of the day, you always need a know-how on doing someone to guide you through on what you have been doing or right or wrong, to know how to do things. So for that, I am very thankful to Play Street for all the knowledge that they share. I really appreciate all the therapists there who actually know what they are doing, who always have a structure or a goal that has to be achieved with when coming to work with Neerav. And also, they are very helpful when I ask them for guidance and support. So, thankful to Play Street for that. Every which way, I am a layman in this field. I don't know much. So, always I need a support, and you guys have been there all through. Minimum, thank you for your co regulation course, which has helped me a lot to work with Neerav.
Thank you, Nimisha. Actually, we kept this panel because parents know the best about what they're needing, right? Like every day you have that visibility of how it shows up or how to deal with that. You'll know the strategies as parents, you will know that heartfelt strategies, right? So we would love to know this. You might not be the professional in this field, but you are professional for your child. So we wanted to know from you. That's why we wanted this. And I appreciate everyone who has spoken in this discussion. Thank you, Mr. Animesh. Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi. Thank you, Bharani, Malvika, Nimisha. Thank you so much, everyone. Your expertise is going to help many parents out there. Maybe you might not have right now a clue of how it's going to help, but soon it's going to show up the result in other families as well. So I'm
Yes, we hope that happens. It reaches a lot of parents who are looking for support for their child.
yeah.
Yeah.
As we are
Hopefully.
nearing, would you like to put some words, Malvika, Bharani, and Nisha, any other words to finish it up with?
Yeah, I would like to tell that there are a lot of things that people will tell you, or a lot of things work for their child, and They will tell you, okay, fine, this has worked, you work this way. It's not that way. You need to know your child. Please do not compare your child to someone else. Know your child, know his potential, his or her potential, and work accordingly. Please do not confuse with a lot of things that happens around the world. Don't listen to everything that goes around the world. Work, please be mindful about what you choose for your child. Choose the best for them, and work with consistency, work with patience, and work with a lot of love to them.
Any words, Malvika and Varuni?
I mean, yeah, I echo what every parent has actually told. So the thoughts actually kind of remain the same for parents who have just received a diagnosis or parents who are listening to, this webinar. So just keep working, and, you never know, your kids can actually surprise you. Like, for example, like Purav has dyspraxia, he's on the spectrum. We thought swimming would be very, very difficult for him. So I mean, he still has, a long way to go in terms of learning the breathing techniques and stuff like that. But my son can now go in a pool without his flaps. He can go in a 10 feet pool, and just like a little aqua baby, he just goes. So I mean, like, it's not that it's not going to happen. It took us 4 years. So first, to remove the fear of water, then the gushing noise of water, lot of aspects. So that's why I said, like, like what all, like Nimisha said, like, understand your child, do exactly what things work for your child, and I'm sure they will surprise you in their own ways. But give it time and just don't lose hope. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add, I 100% agree with what other parents have said here. On top of that, I would like to add, all of that is great, but also taking care of ourselves is equally
Yeah.
important, because in this journey, we are lost. We don't take care of ourselves. We are continuously, what should I do with my child next, on that mode. So switch off your brain, go have a coffee with a
Yeah.
friend, hang out with your girlfriends or whatever, but you need to switch off and then come back, and that you'll come with a fresh mind. I've seen that, because the first few years of journey, I was like, okay, I'm not socializing with anyone. All I is in the autism bubble trying to understand how I can help my child. But then that's taking a toll on me, on my family, and all of that. So
Exactly.
I learned to take care of myself, exercise, or, go out, and then you come fresh. You actually come fresh with better ideas once, because you switch your thoughts for a while, and then coming back to it, you'll see more success. So I would like to advise on that.
Yeah, that's true, Varani. Unless we prioritize ourselves, we'll not be the support, or we'll not have the fresh mind to think of what's going on around us to help our children, right? So thank you all. And on behalf of Play Street team as well, I would like to thank you all for taking your time, and your experience have been shared with all of the parents who are viewing this. So your perspectives have been adding a very valuable depth to our understanding of witnessing dyspraxia every day. So to all our viewers, we hope you have found this interview insightful. If you have any questions or would like to share your thoughts or any ideas, feel free to connect with us.
At Play Street, we offer a special program called Dyspraxia Program, which includes intensive occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, and co-regulation. If you feel that your child has dyspraxia, please feel free to contact us for the further details regarding this program. Thank you, all the parents and all the viewers, once again for being a part of these conversations. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye.